The breaking point. Captain Maya Chen stood at the viewport of Earth's most advanced starship, the ESS Defiance, watching as final preparations for launch continued around her. Through the reinforced glass of Lunar Shipyard Alpha, she could see Earth hanging in the darkness, swirls of blue and white against the black of space. 8 billion humans lived on that planet, none of whom knew that their fate might hang on the success of her mission. "Captain, the final systems checks are complete," Commander Jackson reported, approaching from behind. "Engineering reports the Hawking drive is online and stable." Chen nodded, her dark eyes never leaving the viewport. "And our special modifications. All systems nominal. The adaptive shield generators and phase cannons are installed and operational," Jackson said, lowering his voice though they were alone in the observation deck. "If the Conclave knew what we've built, they'd sanction us back to the Stone Age," Chen finished. "But they've left us no choice." Earth had joined the Galactic Conclave only 30 years prior, humanity's first contact with the wider galactic community. They had been welcomed, after a fashion, permitted to join the interstellar alliance of over 300 species, but relegated to the status of newcomers, children at the adults' table. Earth had been classified as a Class II civilization and restricted from developing certain technologies deemed destabilizing to galactic peace. The Defiance was technically a Class V vessel. Its very existence violated at least 7 Conclave treaties. "The President is ready for your final briefing," Jackson said, checking his comm unit. Chen turned from the viewport. At 42, she carried herself with the confidence of someone who had risen through Earth's unified defense forces on merit rather than politics. Her short black hair was streaked with a single band of silver, a reminder of the Titan mining disaster where she distinguished herself by saving her entire crew when the outpost collapsed. The briefing room was small but secure. President Alvarez's hologram flickered to life above the conference table as Chen entered. "Captain Chen." Alvarez greeted her, the strain evident in her voice despite the hologram's slight distortion. "The Conclave has denied our petition again. They refuse to acknowledge the void-born threat." Chen wasn't surprised. 3 colonies lost in the past month alone, and they still maintain it's just spatial anomalies. "They claim our sensor data is flawed due to our primitive detection systems," Alvarez said with undisguised bitterness. Meanwhile, the void-born advance continues. Intelligence suggests they'll reach the Arcturus colony within 2 weeks. "And the Alphans?" Chen asked, thinking of the peaceful insectoid species whose homeworld lay directly in the void-born path. "Have they evacuated?" "The Conclave denied their request for evacuation ships," Alvarez said grimly. "They're still classifying this as a regional disturbance." Chen's jaw tightened. The Alphans had been among the few Conclave species to treat humans as equals. They didn't deserve to be abandoned. "The Defiance launches in 6 hours," the President continued. "Your mission is officially to conduct deep space observations near the Arcturus sector. Unofficially, stop the Voidborn at any cost," Chen finished. "And try not to start a war with the Conclave while you're at it," Alvarez added with a grim smile. "Earth stands behind you, Captain, but if this goes poorly—" "I understand the stakes, Madam President." The hologram flickered as Alvarez leaned forward. "This ship represents everything humanity can achieve when pushed to our limits. The Conclave has underestimated us from day one. It's time they learned what that means." 6 hours later, the ESS Defiance detached from its berth, its conventional engines glowing blue against the lunar surface. To any observers, it would appear to be just another Earth vessel, larger than most, but not remarkably so. That illusion would last only until they activated the Hawking drive. On the bridge, Chen settled into the captain's chair. Around her, the best crew Earth could assemble worked at their stations with quiet efficiency. Lieutenant Commander Riza at Tactical, Dr. Okafor monitoring the experimental drive systems, Lieutenant Kaminsky at Navigation, and First Contact Specialist, Dr. Lakshmi, ready to handle any diplomatic situations, though Chen suspected there would be little diplomacy in their future. All stations report ready, Captain, Jackson announced from his position as first officer. Very well. Lieutenant Kaminsky, take us out of the solar system, standard acceleration. Once we're beyond conclave monitoring range, prepare for Hawking drive activation. Aye, Captain. Course plotted and laid in. The Defiance moved smoothly away from Earth, accelerating past the orbital stations and defense platforms that marked humanity's modest reach into their home system. Chen knew that several conclave observation posts would be tracking them, reporting back to the Central Authority. Let them watch, she thought. They'll learn soon enough. 3 hours later, they reached the edge of the solar system. Pluto's orbit fell behind them as Kaminsky announced, "We've cleared the monitoring network, Captain. Ready for Hawking drive activation on your command." Chen looked around the bridge. Every face showed the same mixture of determination and apprehension. They all knew what was at stake. "This is it," she said, her voice steady. "All personnel, secure for Hawking transition. Dr. Okafor, activate the drive." Initiating Hawking sequence, Okafor replied, her fingers dancing across her console. Field geometry stable. Quantum bubble forming. Transition in 3, 2, 1. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then reality itself appeared to bend around them. The stars on the view screen stretched into lines of light, then vanished altogether as the Defiance slipped into subspace, traveling in ways the Conclave had deemed impossible for a Class II civilization. Transition successful, Okafor reported, unable to keep the pride from her voice. The drive is performing beyond projected parameters. Estimated arrival at Arcturus in 14 hours. 14 hours, Jackson echoed in disbelief. That's impossible. It should take at least 3 days, even with the Hawking drive. Apparently not, Chen said with a small smile. Well done, Doctor. Maintain course and speed. All non-essential personnel rotate through rest cycles. I want everyone at peak readiness when we arrive. As the Defiance hurtled through subspace, Chen retreated to her ready room to review the latest intelligence on the Voidborn. The data was sparse, mostly compiled from damaged recording devices recovered from the destroyed colonies. The Voidborn were unlike any species in the Conclave records, entities that seemed to exist partially in normal space and partially in some other dimension. Their ships, if they could be called that, appeared as shadowy tears in the fabric of reality, trailing tendrils of dark energy that corrupted and consumed everything they touched. The door chimed, interrupting her thoughts. "Enter," she called. Dr. Lakshmi stepped inside, her normally composed features troubled. "Captain, I've been reviewing the Conclave communication protocols for when we make contact. There's something you should know." "Go ahead." "The Alphans sent out a distress call 3 hours ago. It was intercepted by our long-range communication array. The Voidborn have reached their system earlier than predicted. The Conclave forces stationed there. They've withdrawn to protect Conclave assets." Chen's expression hardened. "They abandoned the Alphans." "Not officially. They're calling it a strategic repositioning while they assess the threat level." Lakshmi's disgust was evident by the time they finished their assessment. "The Alphans will be gone," Chen finished, rising from her desk. "Contact the bridge. Tell Commander Jackson to adjust our course. We're going to the Alphan homeworld." 8 hours later, the Defiance emerged from subspace into chaos. The Alphan system was under full attack. The main view screen showed at least a dozen Voidborn rifts surrounding the Alphan homeworld, their dark tendrils already reaching down to the planet's surface. "Tactical assessment," Chen ordered, scanning the battlefield. 17 Voidborn entities detected, Reza reported. 3 Conclave vessels on the far side of the system, maintaining distance. Life signs on the planet, rapidly diminishing. "They're being consumed, Captain." Chen's eyes narrowed. "Weapons status. Phase cannons charged and ready. Adaptive shields at maximum. Communications, hail the conclave vessels. After a moment, the view screen changed to show the face of a Tellurian, one of the elder species of the conclave. His translucent features registered shock at seeing the human vessel. This is Deputy Commissioner Vorex of the Conclave Security Force. Earth vessel, you are in violation of conclave protocols by entering this conflict zone. Withdraw immediately. This is Captain Maya Chen of the ESS Defiance. We're here to assist the Alphans. Why have conclave forces withdrawn from the planet? Vorex's colors shifted and what Chen had learned indicated discomfort. We are assessing the situation from a safe distance. These spatial anomalies require careful study before. Those aren't spatial anomalies, Commissioner. They're an invasion force, and they've already destroyed 3 human colonies. We're engaging. Captain Chen, I must insist. The transmission cut off as Chen signaled to end it. Target the nearest void-born entity, she ordered. Let's show them what humanity can do. The Defiance surged forward, its engines flaring as it accelerated toward the largest rift. The bridge crew worked with practiced precision as the ship dove into battle against an enemy that had terrified the Conclave into inaction. Phase cannons locked, Reza announced. Fire, Chen commanded. Beams of concentrated energy lanced out from the Defiance, striking the void-born rift. Unlike conventional weapons, the phase cannons operated on multiple dimensional frequencies simultaneously, the result of years of secret research into the nature of reality itself. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The rift convulsed, its dark tendrils retracting as portions of its structure collapsed in on themselves. Direct hit, Reza called out. The entity is destabilizing. Continue firing, Chen ordered. Target the connecting points between our space and theirs. The Defiance banked sharply, avoiding a counterattack of dark energy that would have corroded their hull on contact. The adaptive shields flickered as they adjusted to the nature of the attack, analyzing and compensating in real time. The conclave vessels are moving, Jackson reported. They're retreating further. Chen allowed herself a moment of disgust before refocusing. Ignore them. Bring us around for another attack run. Communications, broadcast to all Alphan frequencies. Tell any survivors to head for their central shelter. We'll cover their evacuation. For the next 20 minutes, the Defiance engaged the void-born forces alone. The phase cannons proved devastatingly effective, closing 3 rifts completely and forcing several others to withdraw. The adaptive shields, while taxed to their limits, held against attacks that would have destroyed any conclave vessel. Captain, Okafor called out, the Hawking drive is registering unusual readings. The Voidborn, they're affecting subspace around us. Can they track us through the drive? Chen asked sharply. Worse, Okafor replied. I think they're trying to prevent us from using it. They recognize the technology as a threat. Chen's eyes narrowed. An enemy that could analyze and counter their technology so quickly was even more dangerous than they'd thought. Reza, focus fire on the largest entity. We need to create an opening for the Alphans to escape. The Defiance surged forward again, all weapons firing in a carefully choreographed pattern. On the view screen, Chen could see Alphan evacuation ships rising from the surface, desperately trying to reach orbit. Conclave vessels are hailing us again, Communications reported. On screen, Chen ordered, not taking her eyes off the tactical display. Deputy Commissioner Vorex appeared, his translucent features now fluctuating rapidly between colors, indicating extreme agitation. Captain Chen, what manner of vessel is that? Those weapons are far beyond Class 2 restrictions. The Conclave will. Save it, Commissioner, Chen interrupted. While you've been assessing the situation, we've destroyed 3 of these entities and damaged 4 others. Now either help us protect those evacuation ships or stay out of our way. As if to punctuate her words, the Defiance's phase cannons fired again, striking a void-born rift that had been moving to intercept an Alphan transport. The rift shuddered and collapsed in on itself, vanishing from sensors. That's impossible, Vorex whispered, his colors shifting to a pale blue of astonishment. Our weapons had no effect on them. Perhaps you should reassess your classification of humanity, Commissioner, Chen replied coldly. Now, are you going to help or not? On the tactical display, the 3 conclave vessels began to move, finally entering the battle alongside the Defiance. Humanity's stand. The combined forces of the Defiance and the conclave ships worked to create a corridor through which the Alphan evacuation vessels could escape. Though the conclave weapons were less effective against the Voidborn, their presence diverted enough attention to allow the human ship to target the most critical threats. Last transport is away, Rizza reported, his voice hoarse after 2 hours of continuous battle. 87% of the remaining Alphan population evacuated successfully. Chen nodded grimly. A partial victory, but millions had already been lost before they arrived. On the main screen, the Alphan homeworld was visibly darkening as the Voidborn tendrils spread across its surface like a cancer. The Voidborn are regrouping, Jackson warned. Sensors detect a massive energy buildup from the remaining rifts. They appear to be merging. All power to forward shields, Chen ordered. Prepare for impact. The Defiance shuddered as dark energy washed over it, the adaptive shields glowing with the strain. Warning lights flashed across multiple consoles as systems overloaded. Shields holding at 38%. Rizza called out. But they're adapting to our frequency. Next hit will be worse. The conclave vessels, Chen asked. 2 heavily damaged, 1 destroyed, Jackson reported grimly. Deputy Commissioner Vorex is requesting assistance. Chen's jaw tightened. Despite their earlier abandonment of the Alphans, she couldn't leave them to die. Move to support. Dr. Okafor. Status of the Hawking drive. Partially functional, but the subspace distortion is increasing. We may not be able to generate a stable field for much longer. Over the next hour, the situation deteriorated further. The Voidborn rifts had coalesced into a single massive tear in spacetime, pulsing with malevolent energy. The Defiance had managed to evacuate the surviving conclave crew members, but their ships were lost. The adaptive shields were failing, and the phase cannons were showing diminishing returns as the enemy adapted to their frequency. In the briefing room, Chen gathered her senior officers for what might be their final strategy session. Options, she asked, looking around the table. Commander Jackson shook his head. We can't outfight that thing now that it's consolidated, and we can't outrun it with the Hawking drive compromised. What if we don't run from it? Dr. Okafor suggested quietly. All eyes turned to her. Explain, Chen prompted. The Hawking drive creates a quantum bubble that allows us to move through subspace, Okafor explained. But what if we reverse the field? Create a bubble that pulls rather than pushes. You're talking about creating a quantum singularity, Rizza said, his eyes widening. That's never been tested. Neither had the phase cannons until today, Okafor countered. The mathematics work. If we can get close enough to that rift and initiate a reversed Hawking field, we could collapse it in on itself, force it fully into our dimension where it would be unstable, or pull it fully into subspace where it can't affect normal space. And what happens to the Defiance? Chen asked, though she already knew the answer. Okafor met her gaze steadily. Best case scenario, we'd be pulled into subspace with the Voidborn. Worst case, complete atomic dissolution. Silence fell over the room as they contemplated the implications. I'll take the ship in alone, Chen said finally. The rest of you will evacuate with the Alphans. With respect, Captain, Jackson said firmly. That's not possible. The procedure will require multiple stations coordinating simultaneously. This is a full crew operation. He's right, Okafor added. We need at least a skeleton crew to make this work. Chen looked around the table, seeing determination in every face. These were Earth's finest. They had known the risks when they volunteered. We all knew this might be a one-way mission, Rizza said quietly. Better to go out saving a world than to run and watch it fall. Chen nodded slowly. Very well. Voluntary skeleton crew only. Anyone who wishes to evacuate may do so without prejudice. Not a single crew member left the Defiance. On the bridge, Chen watched as the massive void-borne rift pulsed with increasing intensity. The Alphan evacuation fleet was safely away, escorted by the remaining Conclave vessel carrying Deputy Commissioner Vorex. "The Conclave ship is hailing us," communications reported. Vorex's image appeared, his translucent features now a deep purple, a color Chen had never seen in a Tellurian before. "Captain Chen," he said, his voice solemn, "our sensors detect that you are preparing for some kind of last stand. The Conclave, I request that you withdraw. Your vessel has proven too valuable to lose." "Thank you for your concern, Commissioner," Chen replied. "But that thing will pursue the evacuation fleet if we don't stop it here. We have a plan." "What can we do to assist?" Vorex asked, surprising her. "Maintain distance and record everything. The Conclave needs to understand what these entities are and how to fight them. And," Chen hesitated, then continued, "make sure Earth knows what happened here." Vorex's colors shifted to a deep blue. "It will be done, Captain. The Conclave will know of humanity's sacrifice." "Not sacrifice," Chen corrected. "Strategy. Defiance out." She turned to her crew. "All stations, prepare for reversed Hawking field generation. Tactical, target all remaining weapons on the central mass of the rift. We need to destabilize it at the exact moment we activate the field." "Engineering reports ready," Jackson announced. "Reversed field calculations complete. Helm, take us in. Full impulse." The Defiance surged forward, accelerating directly toward the heart of the void-borne entity. Dark tendrils reached out toward them, sensing the threat. "Weapons range in 30 seconds, Reza reported calmly. "All power to forward shields," Chen ordered. "Divert life support if necessary." The ship shuddered as the first tendrils made contact, the adaptive shields flaring brilliantly as they fought to repel the alien energy. "Shields failing," Reza called out as consoles sparked around them. "Hull integrity at 82% and falling." "Stay on course," Chen commanded. "Weapons, fire everything we have on my mark." The Defiance plunged deeper toward the heart of the entity, alarms blaring throughout the ship as systems began to fail under the assault. On the view screen, the rift loomed impossibly large, a tear in reality that seemed to swallow all light. "Mark," Chen shouted. "Phase cannons, particle beams, and conventional missiles. Everything the Defiance carried, launched simultaneously at the heart of the rift." The effect was immediate and catastrophic. The entity convulsed, its structure destabilizing as multiple points of attack disrupted its cohesion. "Now, Dr. Okafor, activate the reversed field." Okafor's fingers flew across her console, initiating reversed Hawking field in 3, 2, 1. The familiar sensation of reality bending returned, but this time it felt wrong, as if the universe itself was protesting the violation of its laws. The stars on the view screen twisted and stretched in impossible directions, and a high-pitched whine filled the bridge as the quantum bubble formed around them. "It's working," Okafor called out over the noise. "The rift is collapsing." Chen gripped the arms of her command chair as the ship vibrated violently around them. Status of the entity. Being pulled into the quantum singularity, Reza reported, fighting to stay at his station as the artificial gravity fluctuated. It's fighting back." Dark energy coursed over the hull of the Defiance, seeking weaknesses, trying to corrupt the ship's systems. Panels exploded in showers of sparks as power conduits overloaded. "Structural integrity failing," Jackson shouted. "We're being torn apart." "Maintain field coherence," Chen ordered, even as her console erupted in flames. "We need to complete the collapse." In space, the Conclave vessel watched in awe as both the Defiance and the void-borne entity were engulfed in a blinding quantum event. Energy cascaded outward in waves as space-time itself bent and folded around the point of contact. And then silence, Where the massive rift had been, nothing remained but empty space and dissipating energy readings. The ESS Defiance had vanished along with the threat it had confronted. 3 weeks later, the Galactic Council convened an emergency session. Deputy Commissioner Vorex stood before the assembled representatives of 300 worlds, presenting his report on the Alphen incident. The threat we designated as spatial anomalies has been confirmed as a hostile extra-dimensional species, he concluded. The data collected by the Earth vessel Defiance before its disappearance has given us critical insights into their nature and potential vulnerabilities. And you maintain that this human vessel, from a Class II civilization, was able to destroy these entities when our own Class V ships could not? Asked a skeptical counselor. I witnessed it myself, Vorex confirmed. Their technology was unexpected, revolutionary. They had developed methods of manipulating quantum fields and multidimensional targeting systems that our scientists had deemed theoretically impossible. Murmurs spread through the chamber as the implications sank in. And where is this vessel now? Another counselor demanded. Gone, Vorex replied simply. Captain Chen and her crew sacrificed themselves to close the rift permanently. They saved not only the Alphen refugees, but potentially the entire sector from infiltration. The council chamber fell silent as images of the Defiance's last stand played on the main display. The Earth vessel, tiny against the massive darkness of the rift, fighting until the very end. Perhaps, said the High Counselor slowly, we have underestimated our human colleagues. Indeed, Vorex agreed. I propose an immediate reclassification of Earth to at least Class 4 status, with appropriate access to conclave technology and defensive assets. The void-born threat may return, and humanity has proven they possess the innovation and courage to stand against it. As the Council debated, a message was transmitted to Earth. It contained all the data from the Defiance's battle, Deputy Commissioner Vorex's personal testimony, and a formal invitation for Earth to join the Conclave Defense Committee, a privilege never before extended to a non-founding species. President Alvarez stood in Earth Command, watching the message with her advisors. When it concluded, she turned to them with determination in her eyes. Captain Chen and the crew of the Defiance showed the galaxy what humanity is capable of, she said quietly. Now we build on their legacy. Authorize full production of phase cannon technology and Hawking drive systems. Share the specifications with the Conclave as a gesture of good faith. And Project Phoenix? One advisor asked. Alvarez smiled grimly. Accelerate it. The Defiance may be gone, but its spirit lives on. Next time, we'll be ready. In the depths of subspace, where reality followed different rules, something moved. A ship, damaged but intact, its systems slowly repairing themselves. On its bridge, emergency lighting cast a red glow over a crew picking themselves up from the deck. Captain Maya Chen pulled herself back into her command chair, wiping blood from a cut above her eye. Status report, she demanded. Commander Jackson checked his console, surprise evident on his face. We're alive. Somehow, the quantum bubble collapsed asymmetrically. We're in subspace, but stable. The void-born? No sign of them. I think we succeeded in forcing them fully into normal space where they couldn't survive. Chen nodded, a grim satisfaction in her expression. Damage assessment. Hawking drive is severely damaged but repairable. Hull integrity at 53%. Life support functioning on emergency power. We could be operational in weeks, maybe months. And our position? Dr. Okafor looked up from her calculations, a mix of wonder and concern on her face. We're approximately 7 light-years from where we started, but, Captain, we're not just displaced in space. Chen tensed. Explain. The quantum event created a temporal distortion. Based on subspace readings, we've been displaced in time as well. Forward. How far? Okafor hesitated. Preliminary estimates suggest approximately 6 months. Chen absorbed this information, then straightened in her chair. Around her, Despite their injuries and the damage to the ship, her crew waited for her decision. "Well then," she said, a determined smile forming on her lips, "let's repair this ship and see what's changed while we've been away. I suspect the galaxy has some catching up to do with humanity." Throughout the ship, the crew of the Defiant set to work, embodying the qualities that had always defined their species: resilience, ingenuity, and an unwavering determination to overcome any obstacle, qualities that had finally earned them their rightful place among the stars.